Emma Lawson was the kind of woman everyone trusted, but Lucas Harlan and her closest friend hid a dark obsession that would turn her life into a nightmare. No one could have predicted. In the quiet town of Glenridge, life moved slowly, predictably, and safely, or so everyone thought. Streets lined with neat houses, children playing in yards, and neighbors exchanging familiar greetings created a sense of security that had lasted for decades. Among the residents, Emma Lawson stood out not for any grand achievement, but for the warmth she carried and the care she showed to everyone around her. At 32, she had a steady job at a local publishing company, a small circle of close friends, and a routine that made her life feel orderly. People in Glenridge trusted Emma, and in return, she trusted them. That trust would soon be shattered. It started with her disappearance. One evening, Emma left work later than usual, intending to take her usual walk through the park before heading home. The night was calm, the sky clear, yet something felt off to no one in particular. No warning, no sense of dread. When she never returned, her neighbors first assumed she had stayed longer at work or decided to visit a friend without mentioning it. Hours turned into a day, and concern began to grow. By the next morning, when her car remained in the driveway and her phone unanswered, a feeling of unease settled over Glenridge. The local police were called, and a search began immediately. Officers checked the park, walked the streets, and questioned friends and colleagues, but no one had seen anything unusual. Emma had left home with her purse, phone, and keys, just as always, yet it was as if she had vanished into thin air. Her routine, once predictable and reassuring, offered no clues. Investigators soon discovered a detail that unsettled them: a series of letters she had received in the weeks prior, each threatening and cryptic, signed with no name. Emma had never shared them, keeping her fear private, which now made her disappearance seem all the more deliberate. Adding to the mystery were the late-night phone calls she had avoided mentioning. Records showed multiple attempts to contact her, coming from unknown numbers, each ending abruptly. As officers pieced together her last known movements, it became clear that this was not a case of a simple disappearance. Something darker was at play, something planned and precise. The townspeople, who had always felt safe within the familiar streets of Glenridge, began to realize that danger could exist even in the most ordinary of lives, and that sometimes the most devastating events begin quietly without warning. In the middle of a routine evening, 2 weeks after Emma Lawson vanished, the quiet of Glenridge was shattered by a discovery that would make the town shiver. A hiker, exploring a remote trail deep in the woods on the outskirts of town, noticed something odd partially buried beneath fallen leaves and dirt. Curiosity led him closer, and his eyes fell upon a small backpack, worn and weathered, half hidden under a pile of branches. At first glance, it seemed like an abandoned bag, the kind hikers sometimes left behind. But when he looked inside, the grim reality became impossible to ignore. The backpack contained Emma's personal belongings: her wallet, neatly organized, and a torn scarf she had worn just days before her disappearance. There were receipts, a small notebook, and a few personal items that made it clear this was hers. But the most shocking item was a scarf, stained dark with blood, smeared with an unknown substance that hinted at violence. The hiker backed away, a chill running down his spine, and called the authorities immediately. When the police arrived, they carefully collected the evidence, their professional composure masking a growing sense of unease. Forensics confirmed what the townspeople had begun to fear: the blood belonged to Emma. Her disappearance was no accident, no random wandering. It was the result of a violent attack. The meticulous placement of her belongings, partially buried and hidden from view, suggested that whoever had done this had planned it with precision. Investigators scoured the surrounding area, searching for footprints, discarded items, or any clue that might lead them to the perpetrator. Days passed, and yet nothing concrete appeared. No witnesses had seen anyone near the woods. No security cameras captured suspicious activity, and the forest itself seemed to guard its secrets. Every lead that appeared promising dissolved into frustration, leaving the police with a gnawing fear. This was not the work of a stranger, but someone who knew Emma, someone who had carefully studied her routines and movements. As news of the discovery spread, the townspeople of Glenridge became anxious, locking doors earlier than usual, keeping an eye on strangers, and whispering warnings to one another. The familiar streets and parks, once symbols of safety, now carried an undercurrent of dread. Emma's life, once simple and predictable, had been violently interrupted, leaving questions that no one yet knew how to answer. The forest had revealed a fragment of truth, but the full story, dark and twisted, was only beginning to emerge. As the investigation into Emma Lawson's disappearance deepened, a troubling pattern began to emerge. At first, police focused on strangers, searching for anyone who might have passed through Glenridge unnoticed. Yet, the evidence increasingly pointed closer to home. The more detectives examined Emma's life, the more they discovered that danger had been quietly stalking her in ways no one could have predicted. The first breakthrough came when officers reviewed digital communications and work records. Emma had been receiving messages from someone she knew, someone who had gained her trust over time. The messages were increasingly unsettling, cryptic warnings, veiled threats, and obsessions that grew more intense with every passing day. Among those under scrutiny was Lucas Harlan, a former co-worker who had been dismissed months earlier under mysterious circumstances. On paper, Lucas seemed ordinary, polite, unremarkable, and with no criminal record. But the digital trail painted a different picture, one of calculated attention, obsession, and silent resentment. Forensics revealed that Lucas had monitored Emma's daily life, tracking her routines and movements with meticulous precision. Security footage showed him near the park where she had vanished, appearing at times when no one else was around. Though he had no clear motive on the surface, the evidence suggested a dangerous fixation, a mind capable of planning and executing an act of violence while remaining outwardly normal. The detectives realized they were confronting a predator who could exist undetected in plain sight, someone who blended seamlessly into society while hiding a darker reality beneath the surface. Meanwhile, the townspeople of Glenridge grew increasingly fearful. Neighbors who had once waved to Emma on her walks began to notice subtle details they had overlooked. A figure lingering near the park, a car parked for hours near her apartment, someone watching from a distance. Each small observation, once dismissed, now felt like a warning. The sense of safety that had once defined the town was eroding, replaced by a creeping paranoia that anyone could be the person behind Emma's disappearance. As the investigation continued, it became clear that the threat was more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. This was not the random violence of a stranger passing through town. It was the calculated attention of someone who knew Emma intimately and had waited patiently for the right moment. Every discovery brought new questions. How long had Lucas been watching? Had Emma suspected she was in danger? And most chillingly, was he acting alone? Or was someone else quietly pulling strings behind the scenes? The shadow over Glenridge grew darker with each passing day, and the answer remained just out of reach. Just as the investigation into Emma Lawson's disappearance threatened to grow cold, a breakthrough arrived from an unexpected source. A local trash collector, accustomed to the mundane rhythm of his route, reported something unusual while emptying bins near the edge of town. Behind an abandoned shed, partially hidden under a tarp and layers of dust, he discovered a small compartment containing more of Emma's personal belongings. Among them were items she had carried daily: her jewelry, a notebook, and a set of letters. But the most disturbing find was a worn journal, its pages filled with Emma's handwriting and a sense of mounting fear. The journal revealed a side of Emma no one had seen. She had documented odd encounters, fleeting glimpses of someone lurking nearby, and the unease that had crept into her daily life. Each entry painted a picture of someone growing increasingly aware of being watched, but powerless to stop it. There were notes about suspicious phone calls, unexplained footprints near her home, and strangers who seemed to appear wherever she went. Emma's final entries hinted at a plan, a secret meeting she intended to arrange to confront the person stalking her. But the journal stopped abruptly, mid-sentence, leaving a chilling void that suggested her plan had been interrupted. Forensic analysis of the items in the shed revealed a shocking truth. DNA traces matched Lucas Harlan, confirming what investigators had long suspected. He had been closer to Emma than anyone had imagined, following her movements with precision and hiding evidence with meticulous care. Yet, the revelations didn't stop there. Further investigation uncovered that Lucas had not acted alone. One of Emma's closest friends, someone she had trusted implicitly, had helped him, driven by envy and resentment that had festered beneath a friendly facade. The town was stunned. Someone who had shared laughter, secrets, and confidences with Emma had quietly plotted her demise. The discovery of the journal and the hidden evidence painted a chilling portrait of betrayal and obsession. It became clear that Emma had sensed the danger, but was powerless against the combined cunning of two people she had trusted. Her life had been meticulously tracked, her movements calculated, and her final moments manipulated by those she had believed were safe. Glenridge, once a place of ordinary comfort, now felt like a town under a shadow, where secrets lingered in quiet corners. And the people closest to you could become the greatest threat. The case, once shrouded in mystery, was unraveling, but what it revealed was darker than anyone had anticipated. The arrest of Lucas Harlan and Emma Lawson's accomplice sent shockwaves through Glenridge. The courtroom was tense, filled with residents who had once walked past Emma on the street, unaware that the people closest to her could orchestrate such a tragedy. Prosecutors presented a meticulously detailed timeline, outlining the calculated abduction, the days of surveillance, and the careful disposal of evidence. Each revelation added layers of horror, showing a plan executed with precision, patience, and a chilling lack of remorse. The accomplice, a friend Emma had trusted implicitly, revealed under intense questioning how envy had festered over time, growing into a dangerous obsession. The jealousy had been masked by smiles, shared secrets, and the appearance of normal friendship. Investigators described it as a calculated betrayal, one that preyed on Emma's kindness and unsuspecting trust. Lucas, already identified as the stalker, had manipulated the accomplice into aiding him, creating a partnership driven by obsession, cruelty, and a shared desire to control and harm. The town of Glenridge struggled to comprehend how ordinary people could commit such acts. Streets that once felt safe now carried a lingering sense of unease. Friends and neighbors spoke quietly of fear and disbelief, trying to reconcile the people they thought they knew with the darkness that had been hidden behind ordinary appearances. Families began to pay closer attention to signs of danger, understanding that violence could take root in the most familiar of places, and that sometimes the threat comes not from strangers, but from those who seem closest to us. Emma's life, brutally cut short, became a somber reminder of vulnerability and betrayal. Her story prompted local authorities to initiate programs on awareness and safety, emphasizing the importance of trusting instincts and recognizing warning signs. Glenridge mourned collectively, but the tragedy also sparked reflection. The innocence of routine could be shattered in an instant, and the scars left by such crimes extended far beyond the immediate victims. In the end, justice was served, but the echoes of Emma's disappearance lingered. The town slowly returned to normal, though the memory of what had occurred remained vivid and haunting. Mortal wounds, as it became painfully clear, are not always visible. They can reside in trust betrayed, in secrets kept too long, and in lives stolen with calculated cruelty. Glenridge would never forget, and neither would the world that would hear. Emma's story, a chilling account of obsession, envy, and the dark depths of human behavior.